friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. And today we're going to make peanut butter chocolate. Now, I'm going to be making a peanut butter chocolate bark, but you can use the same recipe and very easily make peanut butter cups. And I'll insert a picture of what the peanut butter cups look like right here. And to know how I use these, you can go check out my peppermint patty recipe right up here, and it shows me using the silicone cups. Now, the bark is the way I make our chocolates 99% of the time, because I prefer not really to have to use the cups. I only use these when I'm really wanting it to look nice and, you know, and all that. But I would rather most of the time use glass anyway. So if you saw my peppermint patty video already, here's how the peppermint patty looks as a bark. One of the ingredients I prefer to use in making the peanut butter chocolate is peanut butter powder. I know some people have issues with the peanut butter powder, and I understand that, but as long as you're getting the organic one with only the 3 ingredients, the organic coconut sugar, the organic peanuts, and the sea salt, I believe it still has its place in our kitchen. For me, I would not use it to replace peanut butter and a bunch of other things. However, it has a lot of other uses where regular peanut butter or real peanut butter, whatever you want to call it, isn't as easy to use. I'm going to go ahead and link to my video I did on the peanut butter powder right up here and some of the ways I've used it in the past, and this is just another way. Now, for those who don't like the peanut butter powder for a couple of reasons, don't worry, stick around, because you can use regular peanut butter in this recipe as well. I have tried it. I'm going to show you the recipe using the powder, but all you need to know is just replace your peanut butter powder with the same amount of regular or real peanut butter. And but there'll be a couple other changes, and I'll get to that in a minute. So let's move on to this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the base, and how to figure out your ratios. It's and the amount you want to make at a time is going to completely be up to you. But to figure out your ratios when you're using your powders like the cacao or the peanut butter, you're going to have, for every 1 ounce of cacao butter, you're going to use 2 tablespoons or 1/8 of a cup, same thing, of your powders, whichever one it is that you're going to do. And then 1 tablespoon of whatever sweetening agent you're going to use, whether it be honey or your organic powdered sugar or your organic powdered coconut sugar, which will be good too. You do want it to be a powdered sugar if you're going to do this. Now, so for this one, because I'm using the peanut butter powder and not the peanut butter from the jar, I can go either honey, or I can go with my homemade powdered sugar. And you can find a video on how I make this right up here. And the same application applies if you want to make a powdered coconut sugar. If you're going to use real peanut butter, you're going to want to skip the honey, and you're going to want to use just this instead, a powdered sugar of some sort, whether it be powdered coconut sugar or powdered organic cane sugar. Because here's what I found is with the peanut butter powder, it gives, even though I found the flavor to be the same both ways, the peanut butter powder gives it a better texture and consistency, because it's already being combined with the fat of the cacao butter. So this is my preferred method. But again, you can consider those options. You still really need some sort of powder added to your blend to get the right consistency in the peanut butter layer. All right, moving on. What I'm going to do is, for the peanut butter base for this one to go in the pie pan, I'm going to use 3 ounces of cacao butter. So I've got 265. Okay, just about 3 ounces. If it goes a little bit over, I'm not concerned. Okay, there we go. Now I'm going to take this and I'm going to melt it slowly over here on my hot plate. We're actually getting a lot of sun today. It's been back and forth fires, using the wood stove and using the solar power each day. I swear it keeps changing. But I'm going to let that go ahead and melt on there on a low heat. You can use a double boiler, which is what I recommend, but I don't have one, and I found just a good stainless steel pot. As long as you're keeping an eye on it and melting it low, it's not a problem. So while that is melting, I'm going to take a little bit of my grass-fed butter here, and here's another place where I find silicone to have its place, and that is using to spread the butter in a pie pan. So you want a good layer of butter spread in the bottom of your pan, and you'll see me, I've put out a couple other videos of making different types of chocolate with no sugar added, no honey or anything, and this is the method I use. All right, I'm going to go ahead and let that melt, and then I'll be back when this is ready for the next step. My cacao butter is almost melted, and I decided what I'm going to do is do part of the honey and then a little bit of the powdered sugar for this recipe, because I've never tried mixing the two. And so what I'm going to do while that's still in the process of melting is I'm going to add, now remember it's a tablespoon per ounce, roughly. Now you can vary that according to your taste. So I'm going to put 2 tablespoons of the honey into the pot with the cacao butter. It's not exact measurement there. So that way it can kind of melt in there with it. Okay, this is just melted. You don't want it to overcook. And so then I'm going to go ahead and put 1 tablespoon, which would be a 1/16 of a cup. So this is an 1/8 cup. So I'll use half of that in there. And then right away, I want to add 3/8 cup of the peanut butter powder, because remember it's a 1/8 cup or 2 tablespoons for each ounce of cacao butter that I'm using. Now as far as the peanut butter powder goes, the one I have is a Honeyville. They don't have it anymore, but I did find a brand. I had to look for it a little bit to find one that was purely organic as far as having the peanuts and just the coconut sugar and the sea salt and nothing else added to it. And I'll go ahead and link to that below. The ratings on it looked really good. I haven't tried it myself because I have a lot of the Honeyville. But at any rate, yeah, and this thing is really stained and ugly looking. I should have grabbed something a little nicer looking. So anyway, you just mix in your powders, and with a fork, I like to blend it real smooth. And then I'm just going to pour it into my pan. Or if you're using the silicone cups, you try to just pour a little bit into each cup as evenly as possible. But again, this is really the easiest method because then you don't have to worry about it. And then again, if you're using the real peanut butter, you want to make sure that you used the powdered sugar. And I might even say cut back a little bit on the peanut butter or on the cacao butter, but you got to be careful because the cacao butter is part of what makes it set the way you want it to. All right, so next what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this in my freezer. It doesn't really take that long, maybe 10-15 minutes or so, until it gets totally hard, and then I'm going to move on to the next step. So I'll be back in a bit. All right, it's probably been about 10-15 minutes, so I'm going to leave that stuff sitting in the freezer while I get started on the chocolate part of this. All right, so I have my scales out and they're ready to go, all calibrated with my measuring cup on here. And I'm deciding I'm going to go ahead and go just a little bit less with the chocolate to the peanut butter. Now you can do equal amounts, that's good too. I've done it that way, but I think I'm going to go just a little bit less. And so I'm going to do 2 ounces, and that is right at 3. Let me find some smaller chunks here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and set this over here and let it start melting. And then I think I'll do the same thing as I'll do half honey and half the powdered sugar for this one. So since that's starting to melt, I'll go ahead and add 1 tablespoon of the honey, and then when it's all melted together, then I'll add a tablespoon of the powdered sugar. So remember, we're doing 2 ounces of the cacao butter here, so that means equal amount of tablespoons per ounce, so 2 tablespoons of whatever sweetener you choose to use. So 1 tablespoon of the honey. All right, so I'm going to let that melt. It's going to be a few minutes, and I will come back when that's all ready to blend with my other ingredients. Well, I got the peanut butter base out of the freezer, and I'm ready to add my other ingredients. So I'm going to do another tablespoon of sweetener, which this time is going to be the homemade organic powdered sugar. And then, since I did 2 ounces, I want 1/8 cup for each ounce, which would either be 1/4 cup total for what we're doing here, or 4 tablespoons. And it's okay if it's a little extra. If you want it to be a darker chocolate or a stronger chocolate, just add a little bit more cacao powder to it. It's really that easy. And just blend it in till smooth with your fork. You want to move fairly quick because you don't want it to cool down too fast, because you shouldn't have got this too hot. It should have just been warm enough for that to fully melt. And you don't want it too hot anyway for when you pour in your pan over your cold peanut butter. Okay, let me move this over here just so you can see it better. And I'm just going to pour that right over the top. You want to do that real quick, and then you want to very, very quickly put that into your freezer so that that top layer does not melt the bottom layer too much. Okay, and so I'm going to put this in the freezer, and I'll be back when this is ready to cut up. All right, so I'm back, and this is all set up and ready to go. So I'm going to cut it up and put it on a plate. And what I use for this is a heavy-duty stainless steel spatula. And I can link to this one below if you think you'd be interested. I like these ones that don't have holes in it for certain things. Less to clean around. And this is actually still pretty soft. So it's not set up as I thought it was. However, I can still cut it. It's good enough for cutting, and then I'll just put it in the refrigerator after this. And one thing I forgot to say in the peppermint patty video is that these really are best stored in the refrigerator. All right, so I stuck it back in the freezer because after cutting it into 4 parts, because it was still a little bit too soft, and what you want it to be brittle enough that you can just break it into parts like this, because that's going to be the easiest way. So cutting it into 4ths or even in half, sometimes it'll even just as you're lifting it out, it'll break like that. But yeah, that really is the easiest way. And I prefer this over using the silicone cups. It might not look quite as nice, but really, it's it's just as tasty, and it's a little easier, especially when you're pouring it. Me, I tend to make a mess when I try to use the silicone cups. Where this, I just pour it into the pan, and there you go. So that is how I make the peanut butter chocolate bark. And if you're interested in making the cups, go ahead and look for the link for the silicone cups below. And don't forget to check out the peppermint patty video for how I do that. Hope you enjoyed this video and that you learned something new. Thanks for watching. Take care and God bless.